They thought I was finished, that losing my job meant losing my value. What they didn't see coming was that I was about to become the headline they'd all pretend not to read, but wouldn't be able to ignore. Family dinners at the Langston estate in Savannah were never about bonding. They were showrooms for career accolades, framed diplomas and luxury cars parked just so in the circular drive. My heart pounded as I overheard Aunt Clara whisper to Layla, "Elliot's a lost cause now. Such a shame." My name is Elliot Kane. I'm 40 now. 2 weeks ago, I was Chief Data Scientist at Neurotech Solutions, a fast-rising AI firm on the West Coast. Now, I was the family's living cautionary tale. The black sheep shuffled to the far end of the table while everyone else toasted raises and acquisitions. Did you hear about Elliot? Poor guy. Brilliant once, I suppose. I stood by the koi pond listening to my cousin Lila brag about her VC fund's latest biotech exit while her brother Miles mused about Web3 restructuring. "You used to be the star, Elliot," Lila sneered, her voice dripping with pity. "What happened?" They adored disruption as long as it came with press clippings and perfectly tailored suits. "Elliot," Miles called, lifting his bourbon. "Talking career pivots. Care to weigh in?" The jab didn't sting, because while Miles managed investors and Lila flipped companies, I'd been quietly building something far more powerful and volatile. "How's the job hunt?" Lila asked, swirling her Cabernet. "Bet you'll regret not joining my firm," Miles added, smirking. "Could have saved you from this. Embarrassment." I glanced at my phone. 9:03 p.m. Pacific, October 15, 2026. About now, Neurotech Solutions servers were initiating the update I had left buried deep in the architecture. My pulse raced as I imagined Carson Holt's smug face, oblivious to the storm I'd unleashed. "A truth protocol designed to make the SEC salivate." "Real success," Miles added, "is about vision." I nodded. Exactly. And mine's just about to make headlines. Let them laugh, the code had already launched. All eyes turned, waiting for me to flinch. "You're awfully quiet, Elliot," Nate chimed in, his 24-year-old arrogance on full display. "Got nothing to say for yourself?" I checked my phone again. 9:04 p.m. Let me tell you what really happened at Neurotech Solutions. 5 years ago, I began a side project, not another app for everything or some token-chasing crypto toy, but an adaptive AI security platform built to learn, defend, and evolve in real time. I called it Guardian. While my colleagues chased UX awards and pitched investors on whatever was trendy that quarter, I worked quietly. Every night I'd lock myself in my apartment, the weight of their doubts fueling my resolve. Line by line, I designed an AI that didn't just defend, it learned, adjusted, and preempted attacks like a living organism. Something relentless, something undeniable. But I wasn't naive. I'd seen what happened to developers who built in the open. "You're wasting your time," Carson Holt had scoffed during a team meeting, dismissing my prototype. "Stick to the safe bets, Kane. Their code's stolen, their names erased, their ideas bought and buried. So I buried something too, a self-verifying cryptographic watermark, invisible unless triggered by very specific system changes. 6 weeks ago, Neurotech Solutions appointed a new CEO, Carson Holt. He summoned me to his 30th floor corner office overlooking Puget Sound. "Elliot, your work's outdated," he said, not even looking up from his phone. "We're moving on, you're done." "Elliot," he began, already halfway through his espresso, "the board's pivoting. We want mental health-focused AI now. Guardian's being phased out." I tried to speak. He waved it off. "Already licensed the source. Contract's done. You're being released." My stomach churned as I signed the release, their betrayal cutting deeper than I'd expected. I signed the release quietly, let them think they'd buried me. But Guardian wasn't sleeping. It was watching. And tonight at 9:05 p.m. Pacific, as their systems processed a routine update, it would awaken and make the truth undeniable. "You should have gone into venture capital," Miles jeered from the patio, smug behind his glass of bourbon. "You could have been somebody, Elliot," Lila added, her voice laced with mock sympathy. "Now you're just this." I smiled as my phone buzzed. "Breaking. Former Neurotech Solutions engineer linked to AI security bombshell. Lila arched an eyebrow. Offer from LinkedIn? Or maybe a barista gig? Nate laughed, leaning back in his chair. Not quite, I replied. Miles chuckled. Hope you like consulting gigs. I looked up. Calm, better set a place for me then. 9:05 p.m. Pacific Time. Guardian was live. Somewhere in downtown Seattle, inside Neurotech Solutions' mirrored glass headquarters, Carson Holt was likely rehearsing his Tuesday morning press briefing. I could almost hear his voice, boasting about his innovation, unaware his empire was crumbling. The one where he'd claim full credit for Guardian, their flagship innovation pivot. Same Carson who once told me, engineers build tools, executives build futures. You're just a cog, Elliot, he'd said during my exit interview. Replaceable. The same Carson who sold off my creation with the confidence of a man who believed signatures outweighed substance. Actually, I said, raising my voice above the jazz spilling from the terrace speakers, maybe everyone should check their phones. Miles chuckled. Lila rolled her eyes. At the fire pit, our youngest cousin, Nate, 24, fresh off a startup accelerator and full of himself, smirked. What is this, some dramatic app drop? Come on, Elliot, don't embarrass yourself further, Lila said, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. I didn't reply. I just glanced at my screen. 9:06 p.m. My phone buzzed. Then Lila's, then Miles's. One after another. The patio lit up with notifications, vibrating in hands and flickering across glass. Neurotech Solutions stock halted amidst AI scandal. Miles' grin twitched. Lila's glass slipped, wine sloshing. This can't be real. Nate muttered, his bravado cracking as he scrolled frantically. Nate sat forward. What the hell is going on? I sipped my drink slowly, savouring it. Oh, nothing major, I said. Just a routine system update with enhancements. More headlines followed. $2 billion, 0 cents defense contract frozen pending review. Former developer files ownership claim over revolutionary AI system. Nate's voice cracked. Elliot, what did you do? I set my glass down. Then I reached under the table and pulled out my old laptop. Its stickers faded, its screen scratched, but its contents deadly precise. You're bluffing, Miles said, his voice unsteady. This is some desperate stunt, isn't it? And I opened the feed. Guardian was ready to speak. Want a demo, I asked? You all love demos, right? They leaned in, suddenly quiet. I logged into a secure terminal and projected Guardi's verification protocol. Lines of code cascaded down the screen. Cryptographic hashes, timestamps, authentication logs, all converging on a single, undeniable truth. This is impossible, Lila whispered, her face pale as the truth sank in. I built this 6 years, 1 month, 12 days. Every iteration, every sleepless night fueled by coffee and defiance, every breakthrough no one ever noticed. It was all mine. I kept my voice calm, though my pulse pounded. That's how long I spent building Guardian. While you were all chasing headlines, I was rewriting the future, I said, locking eyes with Miles, and you mocked me for it. While Carson Holt and his polished pitchmen dazzled conferences, I stayed up rewriting firewalls and modelling threat response trees. From the side porch, Aunt Clara, Miles and Lila's mother, clutched her phone and gasped aloud. Neurotech Solutions under federal investigation for AI IP theft. But they fired you, Nate stuttered, all his startup swagger gone. How could you pull this off? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. You were nobody. I turned my laptop toward him and clicked a tab. No, I said, pulling up an email thread. Carson Holt's breezy approval to run prototypes on their sandbox environment. Dated, digitally signed, timestamped. Guardian wasn't theirs. It never was. I built it outside of work hours on my own gear. I trusted them, I said, my voice steady but burning, and they stabbed me in the back. They only touched it because I asked, and Carson gave me written consent. The moment they sold it, without credit or attribution, they triggered the watchdog, a background process that logged everything and waited for its moment. Miles leaned closer, his smirk long gone. So that defense deal, built on stolen code? I said. Carson sold what he didn't write. didn't understand. And now he's going to pay, I added, my words cold and deliberate. And now, I held up my phone. It was still buzzing. The reckoning had just begun. Incoming call. Carson Holt, I declined. But that's not even the best part, I said, tapping once more. A window opened. A folder labelled Legal Documentation. Inside were 19 patent certificates, each officially registered under my name, protecting every core component of Guardian. Lila's real estate confidence wavered, but Aunt Clara, once a high-powered corporate attorney, leaned in, her legal instincts suddenly on high alert. Wait, you're saying Neurotech Solutions doesn't own any of it? She asked. Not a single line, I said, my voice rising with quiet triumph. It's all mine, and they're about to learn what happens when you underestimate me. I nodded. Every machine learning loop, every adaptive firewall, every neural defense node they tried to pitch to the Department of Homeland Security, it's all mine. And thanks to Carson's arrogance and the digital trail he left behind, proving theft is now just paperwork. Nate was still scrolling his phone furiously, lips parting in disbelief. Dude, their stock's going to crater when markets open, most likely, I said calmly, sipping my drink. And I'll be watching, I said, a faint smile curling my lips. Front row seat to their downfall. Turns out misappropriating proprietary code isn't exactly investor-friendly. More phones buzzed, the whispers got sharper. A few relatives walked away, pretending not to be watching, but the truth was spreading, and no one could outrun it. Why'd you wait? Miles asked, quieter now. Why not stop them before they fired you? I thought of the developers erased from launch decks, the coders who never made it into funding announcements. Because, I said, voice steady, some stories need an audience, and justice is louder when it's undeniable. I wanted them to feel this, I said, my eyes burning into his. The moment they realised they were wrong. My phone buzzed again. New message preview, Laura Chen, CEO Salesforce. Subject, Guardian. Brilliant integrity protocol. Can we discuss this over dinner next week? I turned the screen toward them. Looks like Savannah's not the only place paying attention, I said, smiling. If you've been quietly rooting for the underdog, don't miss what comes next. Hit subscribe and follow Elliot's journey as the world finally hears the voice behind the code. The sun dipped behind the wrought iron trellises in my aunt's manicured garden, casting long gold streaks across the patio. Savannah's evening air was still and heavy with realization. You planned this all along, didn't you? Nate asked, his voice a mix of awe and fear. You let us bury you. And somewhere downtown inside Neurotech Solutions' corporate tower, Carson Holt was likely staring into the unraveling of his empire, wondering how a forgotten engineer managed to flip the entire narrative. Tomorrow would bring headlines, legal notices, congressional requests. But tonight belonged to truth. I stood beneath the soft amber hue of hanging lanterns, watching as my family's expressions cracked one by one. You're not the failure here, I said softly, my words slicing through the silence. You just bet on the wrong horse. The shift was subtle at first, a crease in the brow, a frozen sip. Then came the full collapse, realization spreading like wildfire. Real value doesn't come from panel invites or startup buzzwords. It comes from long nights, quiet defiance, from the ones they all overlooked. Sometimes the most powerful statement isn't noise, it's timing. Miles's phone rang, probably one of his shaken investors. Lila was frantically texting someone, no doubt trying to spin the fallout. Nay, he just stood there, slack-jawed, the illusion of startup glamour shattering at his feet. I checked my watch, 9:30 p.m. Guardian had done what I designed it to do. The truth was out. You'll never be one of us again, Lila spat, her voice trembling with rage. You've ruined everything. And across Seattle's skyline, an expensive lesson about underestimating builders, the ones who stay silent until it matters, had officially begun. 2 months later, I sat in Salesforce's boardroom in San Francisco. Laura Chen, poised and articulate, stood at the front of the room. Behind her, Guardian ran live, monitoring Salesforce's systems, dismantling cyber threats before they could form. "This is your legacy, Elliot," Laura said, her voice warm with admiration. "You've changed the game. In just 6 weeks," Laura said, Guardian has neutralized over 3,200 threats, adapted to 19 new attack vectors, and reduced our response window by 87%. And this was only the beginning. The room once cool with skepticism was now leaning forward with interest. "You developed this entirely on your own?" one board member asked, eyes narrowing with curiosity. I nodded. "Nights, weekends, my hardware, my funding." "Every line was a fight," I said, my voice steady. "A fight to prove I was more than their discard." "Not a single line of code belongs to Neurotech Solutions." I tapped a few keys and pulled up the signed email chain from Carson Holt. "They only gave me access to test servers, and that came with written IP protections, all documented." There was a moment of stillness. Then respect, not polite or performative but earned, settled across the room. "You outsmarted them all," another board member said, shaking his head in disbelief. "Brilliant." This was the same test environment where I'd perfected Guardian's authentication core, the very sequence that exposed Carson's quiet theft to the world. "Well then," Laura Chen said with a confident smile, looking across the Salesforce boardroom, "I believe we're all in agreement. Let's make it official." The board vote was swift, unanimous. That evening, the headlines lit up. Salesforce acquires exclusive rights to Guardian for $5 billion, 0 cents. And me, I was stepping into the role of Chief Innovation Officer, overseeing a global deployment of the very system they once dismissed as over-engineered. My phone had been buzzing non-stop since the truth went public. Tech journalists requested interviews. Panels asked for keynote speeches. "You're a hero to us," one developer's message read, bringing a lump to my throat. "Thank you for fighting." Government agencies wanted testimony on IP ethics in AI development, but the messages I treasured most came from developers, hundreds of them, stories of erased names, unpaid overtime, and stolen breakthroughs. Guardian wasn't just software anymore. It was a flag in the ground, a movement reclaiming space for builders. As I stepped out of Salesforce's glass tower into the fading California sun, my phone buzzed again. I paused. Familiar number. "Hey, Miles," I answered. His voice was low, strained. "Elliot, I need your help." Since the collapse of Neurotech Solutions, Miles' venture firm had been under siege. Investors were fleeing, portfolio companies were folding, developers were walking out in protest. "I was wrong about you," he said, his voice breaking. I'm sorry." "They're leaving," he admitted. "My engineers, my backers, everything. I didn't get it." "Didn't get what?" "Real innovation doesn't come from hype," he said. "It comes from actually building something, from respecting the people who do." "Can you forgive me?" he asked, letting the weight of his words settle. I thought of the anonymous messages I'd received, engineers locked behind NDAs, stripped of credit, resigned to silence until Guardian spoke for them. I let out a quiet breath and nodded. "Send me their names," I said. "We're scaling fast. We're hiring people who know what it means to write something real and protect it." Later that night, I drove past Neurotech Solutions' shuttered campus. The lights were dim. The lobby sign had been taken down. Legal filings were stacking up. The silence was deafening, a testament to their arrogance undone. The building felt hollow, like a monument to arrogance undone. Under a street lamp in the parking lot, someone waved. "Mr. Kane?" a voice called out. It was Vicky Lynn, a junior developer who had quietly stood by me through the chaos. Or should I say, Mr. CIO, I smiled. "Elliot's fine. And you?" I asked. "Honestly," Vicky said, grinning. "Never better. After Guardian exposed everything, a bunch of us started talking. We're documenting it all. Every stolen repo, every buried line of code." She held up her phone, revealing a sleek new site. "A network. A ledger. The truth made permanent." "This is our fight now," Vicky said, her eyes blazing with determination. "Because of you." "We're calling it the Guardian Pact," Vicky said proudly. "It's a framework for protecting developer rights. Think of it as open source armor built to guard against corporate theft. I stared at the screen in her hand, stunned. What had started in the quiet corners of my apartment in Savannah had become a global statement. Send me the link, I said. Salesforce's new ethics council might want to support it. Just then, my phone buzzed again. New message from Margaret Langston. Since the Neurotech Solutions fallout, Microsoft had launched an internal audit on code attribution. Margaret, once the golden legal strategist, had been quietly suspended, pending review of multiple misrepresented contracts. You were right, her message read. I should have listened. I'm sorry. But this silence felt different. Not like a void, like closure, like justice finally catching up. For the first time in years, I smiled fully. Her message read, I get it now. Why you stayed with the code instead of chasing titles. Real power doesn't come from owning the room. It comes from building something that outlives it. I leaned back in my chair, eyes settling on the dented old laptop where Guardian had first come alive. Now it monitored global networks, repelled daily cyber attacks, and protected institutions that once ignored developers like me. The weight of their dismissal had fueled me, but this was victory. But that wasn't the real legacy. The true impact was the shift it sparked. New IP standards, enforced attribution policies, and a worldwide movement that finally asked, who actually built the future? Another buzz. A message from Nate, the cousin who once laughed by the koi pond, and everything had come full circle. Signed up for a coding bootcamp starting next week, Nate's message read. Think you'd mentor me? I want to learn how to build something real. I smiled. I'd walked the long, quiet road from overlooked developer to global CIO, and I knew exactly where he needed to start. Lesson 1, I typed back. Success isn't about who talks the loudest, it's about who puts in the work and protects what they build. You've got potential, Nate, I added. But you've got to earn it. Outside, the lights of the bay shimmered, casting long reflections across the Salesforce campus courtyard. Tomorrow, I'd step into my first full day as Salesforce's Chief Innovation Officer. Next week, I'd appear before Congress to testify on developer ownership rights and innovation ethics, a conversation long overdue. Tonight, I opened a new file, blank, untouched, waiting. A fresh challenge, a new solution, another chance to build something that matters. Because real power in tech doesn't come from applause or press releases. It doesn't live in funding rounds or panel stages. It comes from the builders, the ones who stay late, who rewrite until it works, who solve problems no one else wants to face, the ones who turn betrayal into triumph, who rise above the noise, the ones who write quietly but leave behind something that lasts. Every function, every loop, every line, it all tells a story. And as I placed my fingers on the keyboard, ready to begin again, I smiled once more because I knew exactly how this one would start. If you've made it this far, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment. Not just from me, but for every builder who's ever been overlooked, dismissed, or told to stay quiet. Tell me how you'd fight back. Tell me what you'd build. Tell me what you would have done. Share your story. And if there's one thing I hope you take from mine, it's this: protect what you create. In a world obsessed with noise, real value still comes from the quiet work. If you believe that too, subscribe, follow, and let's keep building a future where creators finally get the credit they deserve.